Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The tyrant's obsession. The blade was cold against his neck, but the silence in the imperial throne room was colder. Speak, Emperor Kalen Draxos commanded, his voice a low rumble of thunder that vibrated through the marble floor, his eyes, hues of molten gold and cruelty, boring into the man kneeling before him. Tell me why I shouldn't sever your head from your shoulders right now, Duke Valerian. You poisoned the wine. You tried to kill my beloved. Beg for your life. This was the climax. The moment where Valerian, the villainous Grand Duke, was supposed to scream, cry, and confess his undying, twisted obsession for the Emperor, thereby cementing the bond between the Emperor and the weeping, fragile hero, Lysander, who stood trembling behind the throne. This was the scene where the main couple's love was forged in the fires of shared trauma. I looked up. I wasn't Valerian. At least, not the Valerian they knew. I was a man who had died in a car crash 3 minutes ago and woken up in the body of a web novel villain destined for the guillotine. I looked at the Emperor, then at the weeping Lysander, and I felt nothing but exhaustion. I didn't want the Emperor. I didn't want the throne. I just wanted to go home. Well, Kalen pressed, the tip of his sword drawing a single bead of ruby blood from my throat. Give me one reason. I met the tyrant's gaze, my expression completely devoid of the jealousy that defined the original character. I sighed, letting my shoulders drop in a display of utter defeat. Bored, I said. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. What? Kalen's brow furrowed, the sword faltering just an inch. I said, I'm bored. I repeated, my voice steady, smooth, and utterly indifferent. I am bored of this court. I am bored of your little pet Lysander. And most of all, your majesty. I am bored of you. That was the word that ruined them. Bored. In the original novel, the Emperor's love for Lysander was fueled by the thrill of the chase and the constant defense against Valerian's machinations. Without the villain's obsession, the tension snapped. But I had made a miscalculation. I thought my indifference would earn me exile. I didn't realize that to a man who owned the world, the only thing he couldn't tolerate was being ignored. The transition from the throne room to the confines of the Sapphire Palace, my house arrest, had been swift. I wasn't executed. Kalen, seemingly baffled by my sudden shift from a screeching banshee to a statue of ice, had spared me. He claimed it was to investigate my madness, but I knew it was his ego. He couldn't kill someone who didn't care about dying. 3 weeks passed. I spent them learning the layout of this body and this world. Valerian Valancourt was beautiful, objectively speaking. Raven hair that fell to his waist, skin like porcelain, and eyes the color of frosted emeralds. He was the epitome of the Ice Queen trope, wasted on a character written to be a pathetic simp. I sat in the garden of the Sapphire Palace, sipping tea that cost more than my old apartment. The air smelled of wisteria and rain. You look comfortable for a man awaiting judgment. I didn't flinch. I took another sip before setting the cup down on the glass table. And you look surprisingly idle for an emperor who has a kingdom to run, your majesty. Kalen stepped out from the shadows of the archway. He was breathtaking, designed by an artist who prioritized sex appeal over realism. Broad shoulders clad in black military regalia, gold aiguillettes gleaming, and that face, sharp, predatory, and currently twisted in annoyance. He didn't bring guards. That was interesting. Lysander has been crying for days, Kalen said, stalking toward me. He moved like a panther, silent and lethal. He thinks you're plotting something sinister by staying silent. Lysander cries if the wind blows too hard from the north. I replied dryly, picking up a book. I am plotting nothing but my afternoon nap. Kalen ripped the book from my hands and tossed it onto the grass. He slammed his hands onto the table, leaning down until our faces were inches apart. I could smell him, leather, steel, and a faint, intoxicating hint of sandalwood. Stop it, he growled. Stop what? This act. This. Apathy. You've spent 10 years tearing the capital apart to get my attention. You poisoned concubine Hera. You pushed Lysander down the stairs. You burned the West Wing. And now you sit here drinking tea. His golden eyes searched mine, frantic and angry. Where is the fire, Valerian? Where's the hate? Give me something. I looked at him, really looked at him. In the novel, Kalen was the ultimate top, dominant, possessive, unyielding. But right now, he looked like a child whose favorite toy had stopped working. The fire went out. Kalen, I said, using his name without the honorific. It was a capital offense. He didn't blink. I realized something in that throne room. You aren't worth the effort. I stood up, dusting off my silk robes. You and Lysander deserve each other. You love the drama, and he loves the victimhood. I resign from the narrative. Make me a commoner. Exile me to the borderlands. I don't care. Just let me be. I turned to walk away, but a hand clamped around my wrist. It was iron hard, bruising. Kalen yanked me back. The force slammed me against his chest. His heart was hammering against my own. You don't get to resign, he hissed, his voice dropping to a dangerous, husky register that sent a shiver down my spine despite my best efforts. You are the Grand Duke of Valancourt. You belong to the Empire. You belong to me. I thought I belonged to the guillotine. I changed my mind. Kalen's grip tightened, his thumb pressing into the pulse point of my wrist. You say you're bored? Fine. Then I will make things interesting. Until you look at me with that obsession again, you are not leaving this palace. That sounds like a challenge, I whispered, meeting his glare. It's a command. He released me abruptly, storming out of the garden. I rubbed my bruising wrist, watching him go. My heart was racing. The plot had derailed. The Emperor wasn't supposed to be interested in the villain once the villain stopped being villainous. I had ruined the main couple, but I had accidentally placed myself in the crosshairs of a predator far more dangerous than I had anticipated. The weeks that followed were a psychological siege. Kalen began visiting daily. He brought work, stacks of documents regarding trade routes, military levies, and magical beast subjugations, and sat in my solar, working silently while I read or painted. It was maddening. Why are you here? I asked one rainy afternoon. The fireplace crackled, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The lighting is better, Kalen muttered, not looking up from a map of the Northern Territories. You have a palace the size of a city. You have lighting everywhere. Lysander is loud, Kalen admitted, finally looking at me. I paused. Trouble in paradise? He wants a wedding. He wants a festival. He wants me to execute you to prove my love. Kalen rubbed his temples. It is exhausting. I told you, I said, turning a page of my book. He loves the victimhood. Without me threatening him, he has to invent threats to keep your attention. It's pathetic. Kalen stared at me. The look was intense, calculating. You used to be like that. I grew up. Did you? Kalen stood up and walked over to my chaise lounge. He loomed over me, his presence swallowing the room. Or are you playing the longest game in history? Are you trying to make me trust you so you can strike? If I wanted to strike, Kalen, I would have let the southern rebels know that your supply lines in the Oryx Valley are vulnerable due to the flooding, I said casually. Kalen froze. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. How do you know about the Oryx Valley? I'm a Grand Duke. I read the reports you leave carelessly on my table. I lied. I knew it because I had read the novel. That was the plot point where the Empire almost fell, and where Lysander was supposed to unlock his holy magic to save everyone. But Lysander was busy planning a wedding. Kalen knelt. It was a shocking breach of protocol. The Emperor never knelt. He took my chin in his hand, tilting my head back. You could destroy me with that information, he whispered. Why tell me? Because if the Empire falls, my tea supply gets cut off. I replied, my voice steady, though my stomach did flips. Kalen stared at me for a long time. Then, a slow, dark smile spread across his lips. It wasn't the cruel sneer he used to give Valerian. It was something else. Something hungry. You are dangerous, he murmured, his thumb brushing my lower lip. I never realized how dangerous you were. I was too busy looking at your jealousy to see your mind. Is that a compliment? It's a warning. He leaned in, his breath ghosting over my lips. I think I'm beginning to hate you less, Valerian. And that is a problem. Before I could respond, the doors burst open. Your Majesty. A guard rushed in, breathless. Emergency. The shadow beasts have breached the inner sanctum of the Holy Temple. Lysander. Lord Lysander is trapped. Kalen pulled back, the spell breaking. His face hardened into the mask of the Emperor. He looked at the guard, then back at me. In the original story, Valerian would have begged him not to go. He would have clung to his leg. I simply picked up my book. You should hurry. Shadow beasts leave nasty stains on white robes. Kalen hesitated. For a split second, he looked like he wanted to stay. Then, duty took over. He spun on his heel and vanished. I waited until the door closed. Then I stood up, walked to the window, and watched the smoke rising from the temple district. Idiot, I muttered. Lysander isn't trapped. He summoned them. I knew the plot. Lysander's awakening was staged. He controlled the beasts. But this time, without Valerian there to interfere and mess up the containment spell, Lysander was going to lose control. Kaelin was walking into a trap, not to save a lover, but to be slaughtered by a power-hungry fraud. I cursed. I cursed the author, I cursed the truck that hit me, and I cursed Kaelin's stupid golden eyes. I went to the closet. Valerian's old gear was there. A fitted combat suit of black dragon hide, enchanted daggers, and a rapier made of star metal. I wasn't the villain anymore. But I wasn't going to let my comfortable captivity burn down because of bad writing. The Temple of Light was a slaughterhouse. Shadow beasts, creatures of smoke and teeth, tore through the royal guards. In the center of the chaos, on the high altar, stood Lysander. But he wasn't cowering. He was laughing, a manic sound that cut through the screams. Dark energy swirled around him. Kaelin was fighting in the nave, surrounded. His golden aura flared, cutting down beasts, but there were too many. He was bleeding from a gash on his forehead. Lysander. Stop this, Kaelin roared, parrying a claw that could have sliced a tank in half. Stop. Lysander shrieked, his face contorted. You look at him. You spend every day with him. I had to bring the darkness so you would be my light again, Kaelin. Why won't you look at me? It was the classic breakdown. Lysander sent a wave of shadow magic toward the Emperor. It was a killing blow. Kaelin raised his sword, but his shield was shattered. He braced for impact. The impact never came. I slid across the marble floor, channeling every ounce of mana Valerian's body possessed into a defensive ward. The collision of light and dark magic exploded like a bomb. I was thrown backward, skidding across the stone until I hit a pillar. My chest felt like it had been caved in. Dust settled. The silence returned. Valerian. Kaelin's voice was a broken whisper. I coughed, tasting copper. I stood up, using the star metal rapier as a cane. My black combat suit was torn, revealing pale skin, and blood dripped from my nose. You really need to choose better partners, Your Majesty, I wheezed. Kaelin stared at me, wide-eyed. Then he looked at Lysander. The betrayal in his eyes solidified into cold, absolute rage. You summoned them, Kaelin said to Lysander. You attacked your own people. You attacked me. I did it for us. Lysander screamed. There is no us, Kaelin declared. He raised his hand. Guards, seize the traitor. As the royal guards swarmed the altar, Kaelin didn't watch. He turned and ran to me. The Emperor of the Obsidian Empire, the tyrant who never bowed, fell to his knees in the blood and dust beside me. You came, he said, his hands hovering over my injuries, afraid to touch. Why? You said you were bored. You said you didn't care. My vision was swimming. The mana exhaustion was catching up. I am bored, I mumbled, swaying. But I hate bad endings. I collapsed. I woke up in the Emperor's bed. Not the guest room. The Emperor's bed. The sheets were black silk, and the pillows smelled like sandalwood. I tried to sit up, but a groan escaped my lips. Lie down. Kaelin was sitting in a chair beside the bed. He looked terrible. Stubble on his jaw, dark circles under his eyes. He clearly hadn't slept. How long? I rasped. For days, he said. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. His touch was incredibly gentle. The healers said you nearly burned out your core. Is Lysander dead? Imprisoned in the Tower of Silence. He confessed everything. Kaelin's voice was devoid of emotion when he spoke of him. He was working with the Southern rebels. He thought if he created a crisis, I would marry him to secure the church's support. Politics, I sighed. Always messy. Valerian. Kaelin leaned forward. You saved my life. I saved my tea supply. Stop it. Kaelin grabbed my hand. Stop pretending you don't feel anything. You nearly died for me. I am a man of property, Kaelin. You are my property's protector. Kaelin laughed. It was a dry, breathless sound. You are infuriating. You are arrogant, cold, and dismissive. And you love it, I shot back. The room went quiet. Kaelin looked at our joined hands. Yes, he whispered. God's help me, I think I do. He looked up, his golden eyes burning with the intensity that terrified me. Lysander was a fantasy, a mirror that showed me what I wanted to see, strength through adoration. But you are a challenge. You are real. You see me not as a god, but as a man who annoys you. He stood up and climbed onto the bed, straddling my hips. He was careful not to put weight on my injuries, but the dominance was back. You ruined me, Valerian, he murmured, leaning down until our noses touched. You ruined my taste for obedience. I don't want a pet anymore. I want an equal. I want the only man who dares to call the emperor boring. My breath hitched. This was the enemies to lovers trope, accelerated by a near-death experience. It was dangerous. It was toxic. It was exactly what this body wanted. I reached up, tangling my fingers in the hair at the nape of his neck. I'm still bored, Kalen, I whispered against his lips. So you better work very hard to keep me entertained. Kalen grinned, a wolfish, possessive expression that promised chaos. Challenge accepted. He crashed his lips onto mine. It wasn't soft. It was acclaiming. A declaration of war and love, all wrapped in one. And for the first time since I arrived in this world, I didn't want to go home. And that is how the villain stole the story, not with a scheme, but with the truth. If you enjoyed seeing the tyrant Kalen beg for attention, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you save the person who sentenced you to death? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art, 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Kalen, emperor, broad shoulders, black military regalia with gold accents, long dark hair, intense golden eyes, possessive expression, leaning over man 2, dominant pose, muscular build. Man 2. Valerian, Grand Duke, long raven hair, pale skin, wearing torn black silk combat suit, bandages on chest, lying on black silk sheets, looking up with a smirk, submissive but defiant. Background is a dark, luxurious imperial bedroom. Candlelight, shadows, intimacy, high contrast, cinematic lighting, sharp focus, intricate details.